Defend the throne room. The Tinkerer's Cave was still not operational due to the lack of a Creatomat. The confused evil berated itself for taking so long and quickly set about fixing the problem. A sparkling new Creatomat graced the Tinkerer's Cave of the expansion-hungry evil. A goblin would be able to work well in here, producing toolboxes. A few of these boxes would now be needed in order to invent a trap. The moody evil waited patiently. As cowardly as the goblins were, their creativity more than made up for this. They proudly presented the treacherous evil with their plan for a devious trap. With a silent, evil cackle, it quickly buckled down to setting the trap. Job done. The trap was finished and ready to be found by a hero. This is going to be so much fun. Just at that moment, a particularly powerful dwarf warrior appeared in the dungeon. How had he suddenly arrived at this precise time was indeed most odd, but his presence was more than welcome. He was going to be a guinea pig for the trap. Even this strong dwarf warrior didn't stand a chance against the treacherous traps and powerful monsters of the invincible evil. He bit the dust. So much for a game of dwarves. The dungeon's defenses were now clearly much improved, but the hunting lodge still remained well protected and impregnable. There was nothing that the ultimate evil could do. The task was impossible. So the evil withdrew bent and broken, let feelings of revenge ebb away, and instead took up looking after those cute, teeny-weeny trees. What are they called again? Bonsai, yes, that's it. The end. Pretty unsatisfactory, huh? Of course, that wasn't the end. In reality, the indefatigable evil paid the Goblin Cave another little visit. The Goblin leader would hopefully spit out something useful after a few more slaps. A few hard slaps were enough to motivate the leader of the goblins to help the ultimate evil. As it transpired, there was an old tunnel which had been previously used as an escape route. This connected the Goblin Cave with the vaults of the hunting lodge. The goblin leader voluntarily made a goblin assassin available to the hard-hitting evil to help infiltrate the lodge. The cheerful evil was pleased with this support. An assassin was a decent melee fighter, but its actual strength lay in its ability to make itself invisible. This was, of course, tested out immediately. And so the negligent evil promptly allowed the only really vital unit to this mission to die. The goblin leader sighed and put his second-best assassin at evil's disposal. Despite the powerful invisibility skill, it was advised the charitable evil had researched the hospital. This would enable its units to quickly recover from their injuries, once it had been built, that is. Enemies have entered the dungeon. A locked door prevented the assassin from progressing. It would have taken a long time for him to have opened it with sheer brute force using weaponry. Thankfully, he had a suitable skill with which he could deactivate doors, and more importantly, traps. Oh, come on. Really? That assassin can make himself invisible. Invisible! And you let him just die? How did you manage that? Off you go. Ask the Goblin Leader for another one. And this time, take care of him. The on-the-ball evil recognized that the warrior princess there was extremely powerful. The goblin assassin would be best advised to avoid any contact with her. Payday! A Gobobot was being forced to make miserable repairs in the lodge. A brief feeling of what it thought might be sympathy passed through the sensitive evil, but this actually turned out to be a mighty belch. Naturally, it would free the useful Gobobot anyway. And so the negligent evil promptly allowed the only really vital unit to this mission to die. The Goblin Leader sighed and put his second-best assassin at evil's disposal at the basement exit. Enemies have entered the dungeon. There are enemies in your dungeon. Good God, can we please stop letting mission-critical units die? Not that I've got any sympathy for those worms, but it's really beginning to hold things up here. Collect another assassin from the basement exit. Elated by the assassin's attempt at rescuing it, the Gobobot joined the horde and succeeded in showing its tormentors a real hot time. Its ability to more or less ignore range damage and set fire to large areas would come in very handy. Enemies have entered the dungeon. Payday.
Roses are red and I don't
The hunting lodge was completely destroyed. The vengeful evil gave itself a very self-satisfied pat on the back. The time was right to concentrate on King Robert. He was in his renowned garden reciting his much less renowned love poems. The lyrically challenged evil had no time for poetry and would soon make this tangibly clear to him. Good God, can we please stop letting mission-critical units die? Not that I've got any sympathy for those worms, but it's really beginning to hold things up here. Collect another assassin from the basement exit. The horde came across a stray goblin by the roadside, who apparently constituted the sad remains of one of the hunting lodge's attack units. This miserable being joined the army of the powerful evil with a grateful whimper.
Really?
The king was accompanied by a pixie who was able to cast powerful healing magic. Any direct attack would be suicidal. Mercifully, the omniscient and helpful narrator was at hand. He pointed out to the impatient evil that the pixie went off from time to time in order to check that all was well, and much more importantly, eat her supper in a little camp to the south.
Really?
It's payday. One would think the killing a fragile flying being wouldn't be rocket science. But an incredibly incompetent evil had taken far too long in doing so and had startled a few guards into action. The annoying little pixie had spoken her last healing spell. The crafty-minded evil sculpted a fan from her wing. Now it was time to look for King Robert and ensure his early demise. King Robert fell, and the ultimate evil had received its well-deserved revenge. But there were still many more heroes out there who deserved to bite the dust. Their time would come. The demigod Krotos, one of the sniveling cowards who had banished the ultimate evil, had just marched his alliance army out of the swamplands to fight the snake-like Nagas. The ultimate evil wanted to teach him the full futility of war by ensuring his untimely passing. Besides, King Robert was defeated, but there were more heroes whose life the ultimately vindictive evil was after. Here in the swamplands, the demigod Krotos was just leading the Alliance's troops against feral Naga clans. They had retreated here after the collapse of the Dark Army. It would seem sensible to first strike an alliance with these Nagas before the impatient evil squared up against Krotos. gold-greedy evil built the first underground treasury, thus laying the foundations for insane amounts of hoarded treasure. A tinkerer's cave had been built. Soon traps and doors in the dungeon would make any would-be hero's life more tricky. Pleased Evil's hard-working goblins had made plans for a new room, a guard room. There, creatures could patrol and keep a lookout for heroes. Immediately, the Ultimate Evil got down to having this room researched. The first brewery was built underground. Later, orcs and goblins would get obscenely drunk there, and then meander through the dungeons, slurring their words and singing lewd songs. 100 years later, the dungeon of outdated evil was discovered by other baddies. Following careful investigation, they came upon the single reason why this dungeon had failed. There was no guard room. Maybe you should work towards preventing this future becoming reality. The Alliance had discovered the presence of the Ultimate Evil. This had nothing to do with a tip-off from a certain narrator who wanted to increase the tension. It was pure coincidence. The good people responded, as you might expect, with a direct attack on the dungeon. Enemies have entered the dungeon. The guard room was researched and ready for construction. Creatures that were thrown there by the Hand of Terror would keep watch and be especially vigilant for intruders. They were able to alert other creatures near the guard room and summon them for reinforcement as well. It's payday. From the Dungeons 2 strategy guide, Nagas are ranged units and can detect invisible creatures. Spiders have spread throughout the underground. Payday. Some creatures had been hiding in a secret room. They joined the ultimate evil. Enemies have entered the dungeon. There was a mysterious shrine underground, which was not yet available. Because something like this spells work for underpaid graphic artists, one can assume that it is likely to come into play at some time or another. Some creatures had been hiding in a secret room. They joined the ultimate evil. The exploration Keen Evil sent its troops to the surface for the first time. The swamplands spread out before them. The next step was to either find the Nagas and recruit them, or be massacred by the army of the Alliance. It was a difficult decision. Some creatures had been hiding in a secret room. They joined the ultimate evil. Payday! The army of the ultimate evil could view the temple from the top of the hill, and it did indeed not look good for the Nagas. The nauseatingly good hero Krotos personally led the Alliance into battle and was forcing the snake creatures to retreat. Only his death would deliver the temple back into the hands of evil. Well, that could be arranged. The creatures of a suspiciously suicidal evil made their way towards a treacherous ambush. At the last minute, apologies, I thought that the horde would take a different path because there is an ambush awaiting them here. But obviously that doesn't seem to be bothering someone at all. The troops of the ultimate evil stumbled upon a patrol of the Alliance that had caught some Nagas. Of course, they immediately set about wiping out the much-hated heroes. Oh, and by the way, you could of course also set those Nagas free. Some creatures had been hiding in a secret room. They joined the ultimate evil. The last fighter in the patrol was defeated. The creatures of the horde cheered. Oh yes, and set the Naga free as well. They were overjoyed to join the ultimate evil. The eager for new units evil sent his creatures further towards where it expected the Naga camp to be. The Nagas kept up their fight to free their unholy temple from the Alliance. If the ultimate evil was to help them win it back, then their support would be guaranteed. Since that fitted perfectly with the planned revenge on Krotos, it was the ideal solution. Payday! The deranged evil had needlessly let the Nagas accompanying it die. In an earlier version of this story, this would have spelled instant defeat. Pragmatically, however, it was decided that the disgraced player would be allowed to carry on with the game. Oh yes, and the Naga were brought back to life again. Alliance troops. It appeared that more units had made themselves invisible with the help of magic. The support of a Naga would be needed to detect them. Enemies have entered the dungeon. At last, the Horde reached the Naga's camp. They were not able to offer the ultimate evil much help. However, they spoke of an artifact that was hidden deep down in the mountain. It would make defeating the Alliance a piece of cake. The Nagas opened a portal to the artifact using their ancient magic. The insidious evil debated briefly whether it was worth the risk. Finally, however, it decided it was only a question of its creatures' lives, and of course, the ultimate evil didn't give a toss about them. The Horde had passed through the Naga portal and found themselves in an old altar chamber, in the center of which lay a very ancient-looking object. This had to be the artifact. Some creatures appeared to be guarding it. It's payday. There were still a few guards merrily dancing around the artifact. These had to be removed.